What's going on, guys? Welcome back to episode 2 of the 2023 Atlanta Braves Tomahawk Timeline. And what a great sweep to start the season for the Atlanta Braves, going on a 5-1 road trip to start this 2023 campaign. I don't think any of us could have asked for a better start, especially with the Mets and the Phillies also being 2-4 and 1-5, respectively. The Braves get a big sweep over a bitter playoff rival of ours the last 20 years. Always great to get those, and a awesome start to the season. Couldn't have asked for anything better than this. So yes, welcome back to the 2023 Tomahawk Timeline. We're doing these after every series or week, depending on my schedule. So I'm glad you guys could take some time out of your day and get your series filling on what you guys, what you guys may have missed. And yeah, let's jump right into it. Not wasting any time. The Atlanta Braves had a big second series of the season, facing off with another World Series contender, in my humble opinion, the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Braves went to town. Game one, it was the second-year man, Jake Woodford, versus the veteran, the curveballer, Chuck Nasty Morton. And the Braves put up 6 home runs in the first 2 innings of the ball game, putting Atlanta up 6-1, and they rode that one to a game 1 victory. Gonna jump into a little bit of a summary here for you guys. The first inning, there was a lot of strikes that were called on the opposite side of the batter's box. So it was a very wide strikes on that night. At least it was consistent. I'll give the umpire that. But Atlanta was able to make him pay. Ronald Acuna with a leadoff infield knock, beating out the Platinum Glover, Nolan Arenado. He would end up getting thrown out via Wilson Contreras trying to steal second base. But Austin Riley made sure that the Braves did get a first inning run on the board, hitting a ball 473 feet up towards the left field concourse in Busch Stadium, the third longest home run ever in Busch Stadium, the third history, and it put Atlanta up on the board. Of course, in the bottom of the first inning, Atlanta would not be able to turn a 4-6-3 double play to end the inning. Nolan Arenado would beat out a throw from Orlando Arcia to tie it, and Charlie Morton would have to let his offense go back to work, and they would do just that. It would be a 2-run homer by Ozzie Albies, putting one just over the reach of the right fielder Jordan Walker, who we'll talk about later in this episode, potential Rookie of the Year candidate, into the right field seats by a hair, foot or two, and Atlanta would go up 3-1. And Ronald Acuna Jr. with the second home run of the season would follow that up with a 3-2 pitch all the way to right center field, just out of the reach of Dylan Carlson. But hey, it counts just like the rest of them, and it would be 6-1 Atlanta. I'm sure Chip Caray had mixed emotions calling it for the most part, and it would stay that way for quite a little bit. The Cardinals would tack on 2 in the bottom of the fourth inning, and they would get out of a jam. Wilson Contreras would fly out to the warning track. It wasn't the best start for Charlie Morton as we dive into him here. He had 5 1/3 on the scorecard, giving up 9 hits, but the job was done well enough for the Chuck Nasty. Probably his last season, you'd have to think, so I don't think you can ask for much more. Facing a potent Cardinals lineup that is, I think this might be one of the best lineups in baseball, rivaling those of the Braves, the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Padres, that, so, and the other. And he was able to do enough to get this Braves team a opening series victory. He would hand it over to Nick Anderson, who would run into a little bit of trouble in the 7th inning, giving up a solo home run to Paul Goldschmidt, the 2022 National League MVP, to make it only an 8-4 ball game for the Braves, but he would go on to get an inning and 2/3 of work. So very nice to see out of Nick Anderson, and the Braves would ride that into an 8-4 final score. The Cardinals would out-hit the Braves 12-8, but the Atlanta team out-homered them 3-1, and no errors, a very clean ball game, but Atlanta would get a big series opening victory in St. Louis. Always good you can do that, being that Atlanta had a big test coming up. The next 2 games, Atlanta would be throwing out Bryce Elder and Dylan Dodd. Dodd in his MLB debut in Game 2, and of course, we only saw Bryce Elder a handful of times in his rookie season last year. So very great for the Braves to get that big opening series victory behind Charlie Morton. And we'll flash forward here to the Game 2 in this St. Louis series. Would be Dylan Dodd versus the veteran left-hander Steven Matz. So battle of the Southpaws. And Atlanta would do more of the same. tacking on a 2-run home run from Austin Riley in the top of the first inning. This one, in the words of Brandon Godden, was slacking a little bit because the distance wasn't 473 feet. It went a mere 410. Only a no-doubter in its own right, but it would put Atlanta up 2-0, and they would never surrender it. Orlando Arcia got a hold of his first home run of the season in the top of the second inning, launching that one into the left field terrace just out of the reach of another Cardinals outfielder. But hey, they count just the same as the 470-foot moonshots. And Atlanta would go on to win this one by a final score of 4-1. I want to talk about the Atlanta defense. This game, Atlanta was all over the field, nagging base runners, making sure the Cardinals didn't have any opportunities to get themselves back in this game. Acuna with 2 third-out balls, throwing out Contreras trying to take a second base to end, I want to say, the fourth or fifth inning, and also the seventh inning when Dylan Lee came in to see Brendan Donovan, a lefty-lefty matchup. He would single into right, and Tyler O'Neill thought he had an easy route to score, and off the bat, based on the camera angles of the broadcast, it looked like Tyler O'Neill was going to stroll in to score and give Atlanta only a 4-2 lead, St. Louis being able to cut into it. But Ronald guns the man at a 92-mile-an-hour throw by a good margin. Sean Murphy was so surprised at how quick the ball got to the plate, myself included, and Atlanta would hold on to win this one 4-1 behind a Kirby Yates scoreless eighth inning and a AJ Minter save. And Atlanta would start the series just like how you would want to. Steven Matz, I think, only won 5 innings in this ball game, but talk about Dylan Dodd. A lot better than what we saw to Jared Schuster in Game 3 of the season. Dylan Dodd in his debut, 5 innings of 1-run ball against, again, another potent lineup that St. Louis has, and bravo to him, tip of the cap. He got his major league victory in his debut. Atlanta would out-hit the Cardinals in this one 12-10, and would get a big victory there to improve to 4-1 on the season and would set themselves up with an opportunity to get a big sweep to start the season. And you don't see Atlanta having a lot of opportunities to sweep teams like St. Louis, especially in the month of April. So it was very crucial if the Braves were going to take this and run with it. And they sure did, getting a 5-2 victory in the series finale, a day game. A type of game that haunted the Braves a lot last year. Miles Michaelis going out on the mound, the Lizard Eater himself, versus Bryce Elder, as we talked about earlier. And Atlanta, man, 3 batters into the ball game, led 2-0 via a Ronald Acuna single. He went first to home on a double by Matt Olson hit into straightaway center. And, man, him flying around the base pass gives you a lot of hope for Braves fans to think that his 2019 form, his 2021 form even, is coming back into fruition. And Austin Riley would go on to drive in Matt Olson after his double, and they would tack on as well with an Albi sac fly in the top of the first inning. Eddie Rosario lined out the eighth batter to bat in the first inning, would end up lining out to Paul Goldschmidt, a ball that if it would have got over Goldschmidt's glove would have been into the corner, and that would have scored both Michael Harris and Marcell Ozuna, and Atlanta would have been up 5-0 at the first inning. But Atlanta settled for their 3, and Bryce Elder wants a freaking work. 6 scoreless. Are you kidding me? 6 scoreless against the Cardinals line. You'll take that any day of the week. Matt Olson would tack on his 3rd home run of the year, hitting one to straightaway center into the batter's eye. No doubter off the bat. 410 was the distance, but for those watching the broadcast, you could tell that had a pretty good opportunity of getting out the way the ball was carrying that afternoon. It sure did. Atlanta would lead 4-0, and it would stay that way until the 7th inning when Jordan Walker, again, who we talked about earlier in the show, number 1 prospect in baseball in a lot of people's eyes, hit his first major league home run. So claps around to him. The kid has a bright future. Let's put it that way. A Decatur High School graduate, big fan of the guy. And he got his first major league home run. The St. Louis crowd even asking for a celebration. And he comes out, tips his cap to the crowd. Even though it was a 5-1 Atlanta victory and a 5-1 Atlanta score at that point in time, you love to see those sort of things for young players, and I'm pretty sure it's a Cardinals tradition like no other. So, of course, Bryce Elder going 6 scoreless would be plenty enough for Atlanta to get this 5-2 victory. It would take 2 relievers in the bottom of the 9th inning. Colin McHugh came on with 2 outs in the bottom of the 8th to retire Paul Goldschmidt, and he would ultimately have to come out at 27 pitches with 2 outs in the 9th inning, but it would make way for Jesse Chavez to come in and get his first save in a Braves uniform, his 9th of his career, and Atlanta would finish off a sweep with a 5-2 victory. Atlanta out-hitting the Cardinals in this affair, 10 hits to 6, 1 homer each, of course, the Matt Olson and Jordan Walker solo home runs. Olson in this ball game, 3 of 5, 2 doubles, 3 RBIs. You love to see it out of the franchise first baseman, replacing Freddie Freeman, who I love both in their own right. So yeah, before we talk about what's next, including our home opening series versus San Diego, diving deep into the storylines of this series, going back to game 1, of course, Charlie Morton, his potential first start of his last season in his debatable Hall of Fame career, went not probably as well as the Braves predicted, but good enough in their eyes to get them a victory. Atlanta was really able to keep Arenado and Goldschmidt at bay for most of the series. They did walk at certain times. They both did get on at certain times, but Atlanta only had to see them in the 9th inning one time, and that was Arenado's leadoff single in the bottom of the 9th inning tonight. It was a blessing in disguise at the end of game 2 when Kirby Yates came in, and he did unfortunately get into a jam, but it made it to where AJ Minter did not have to see Arenado or Goldschmidt in the 9th inning last night, because I'm recording this on the evening of April the 5th. Game 3 took place about 2 hours ago today, and was great to see Atlanta be able to get around them pretty easily, no harm found. And so, yeah, it's very interesting that we're not going to see the Cardinals until the month of September now. I was glad to get these big victories out of the way. Hey, listen, going into this series, I predicted Atlanta to win 2 or 3, and I said I'd be completely fine with that. They swept them. Very shocked. The curse of Ryan Helsley is nothing but alive. Atlanta has dominated St. Louis since, the horrific ending to that 2019 National League Division Series at the end of Game 4, and, of course, the dramatic Game 5 for a lot of us Braves fans. But great victories all around. Atlanta jumping ahead with first run, scoring in the first inning of every matchup, and they would ride it into a victory. Getting your pitcher's run support is going to be very crucial, especially when you're down Kyle Wright, Max Fried, and Mike Soroka for a couple of weeks. That's for sure. So, great series all around. Nothing really much else to say there. Acuna, of course, with a great series. Albies came alive. Eddie Rosario with a 2-hit ball game last night. So you do love to see all these things. Kevin Pillar got his first start in a Braves uniform last night. And he has Johan Camargo's number 17. But enough of the Cardinal series. We're going to talk about what's on the upcoming schedule for the Braves, and that is, of course, the home opener where they face the Milwaukee, my goodness, the San Diego Padres. I was looking at their score on my TV, so apologies for that. And tomorrow night, we got an absolute showdown. Blake Snell versus Spencer Strider. I don't think you'd want anything else but that on your home opener. I think this was originally slotted to be a Max Fried start, but being that he's now on the injured list, they brought up Elder to complete the series today, and you got Strider going up against Blake Snell, who hasn't had the best of his career years in San Diego, but still a very, very good pitcher in his own right, and I will be very enthusiastic going into this Braves series. That's on the measure for Thursday. Looking ahead to Friday, I'm pretty sure Atlanta's planning to go with a bullpen game, as it'll be the Team Mexico star Nick Martinez, or I think he played for Team USA. That's my apologies. On the mound Friday night. That's on Apple TV. Saturday, you got Michael Waka 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 versus Charlie Morton. So a battle of the dinosaurs going into the Sunday recap, which is on ESPN. Maybe we'll have that broadcasted right here on the Hardcore Sports Network and on my own YouTube channel where you guys are watching this from. If you're listening on the Spotify or any of the audio platforms, also thank you for listening wherever you are. Make sure to come by and give us a visit. Looks like it's going to be Seth Lugo, the Braves old pal from Queens, getting his second start in a Padres uniform going up against Dylan Dodd, his second time through the rotation on Sunday night. So, going into this week, I wanted Atlanta to go 4-3. Get an over 500 week, keep the April train moving, start off on the right foot. And it was a very hard week looking at the schedule, seeing St. Louis and San Diego back to back. I was just hoping Atlanta would find a way to go 3-0 and 4-3, and maybe I undersold them just a little bit because they came out swinging this series 3-0 to start the week. You got to think they're going to at least split at home versus San Diego, and I will take a 5-2 series or week any day, especially when you're seeing these teams in the month of April. So I'm going to go out on a limb and predict Atlanta to split this series. I could see Atlanta taking the opener. Maybe San Diego punches back on Friday night on the Atlanta Braves red out when it's Nick Martinez versus the bullpen game. The bullpen has been stretched out a little bit the last couple of nights. So if you want a good opportunity to win that one on Friday, you're going to need a lights out performance from Strider, just like he had in his first start in the nation's capital. But ultimately, you can't win them all. So if Atlanta does end up splitting the next two games to fall to 6-2 and end up doing the same thing with the weekend matchups, I will be completely happy with Atlanta sitting at 7-3 through their first 10 matchups. Because after this week, you see Kansas City and Cincinnati, and I think that's a week that Atlanta is going to be able to take a lot more advantage of, especially if they handle business at home. And I think the crowd's going to be fired up to see these guys. I know a lot of the guys that didn't have an opportunity to have their first home openers last year, like Spencer Strider. Well, I guess he did pitch opening night, but more so Michael Harris. It's going to be electric. Sean Murphy, his first game in an Atlanta Braves uniform at home. Same thing with a couple of the relievers like Nick Anderson, like Lucas Letke, like Joey Jimenez. I think it's going to be a party at the Battery. Same goes for Kevin Pillar and Sam Hilliard. I'm expecting Atlanta to come out on fire once again this weekend, but the San Diego squad will not back down. So I am predicting a series split, but it all starts tomorrow night with Spencer Strider toeing the rubber against the southpaw, Blake Snell. So I don't really know if there's anything much else to cover on the news front. I mean, we talked about it in the last episode. Atlanta was going to backload the Max Fried injury list stint till the day of the start, which was today. So they made that news yesterday afternoon, April 4th. And it looks like Max Fried will only be missing a start or two, which is not bad whatsoever. If you can get another win out of Bryson Stott, what in the world am I talking about? Excuse me, guys. Bryce Elder in the next two turns, I think that's job well done if he can go 2-1 in his time replacing the Braves ace. I think he'll take that any day of the week. So, yeah, the Braves just got to keep moving, keep on winning. The Phillies and the Mets are helping you out by losing some of their games. And, of course, the Marlins are also, I believe, under 500 along with the Nationals, who the Braves don't really have to worry about at all in their perspective. But just to give a whole standings recap. So, yeah, great week. Glad to give you guys the recap and the rundown. Sorry if I was a little rushed in this episode. Doing a lot of things this afternoon, and I promise to get more clean with these episodes as the summer goes along. So, I hope you guys enjoy this journey. Great win, great series, and let's continue it on with San Diego. I'll see you guys probably Monday with a recap for the San Diego series. So, yeah, I hope to see you guys there. Great win, great series. Let's keep it moving. Braves, 5-1. We'll see you next time for episode 3 of the Tomahawk Timeline.